Hello there, Evie here. Today we're checking out the N.Seat Pro 700. This is my review of their gaming desk office chair, pick your poison. First things first, before I go on, this was sent to me from N.Seat for free of charge, and I get to keep it afterwards as a result of doing a review or some test on it, but I'm reviewing it. So if you feel that's going to change my opinion on things, or you don't want to see that kind of review, and you want somebody to buy this and do the review on it, then please feel free to go and find a video or any sort of written review like that. So if you want to skip to any particular part of the video, by the way, this is a long video and I want to cover a couple of things in the intro, then please skip ahead using the timestamps in the video description or pinned comment if you're using a mobile device. That'll get you to jump towards the first unboxing bit, my build, some of the issues I've had some issues, some rather major issues actually. One of them I actually had to have a replacement part sent out. Probably not the case for most people that own this chair, but again, I'm highlighting all the points and my experiences with this chair. Also going into the user experience sort of section and all the features of the chair, and then there's a conclusion at the end. I will be comparing this chair every now and then to the IKEA Markus chair, which is a pretty popular chair from IKEA. It's about £160. This is about £250, 300 euros, about $300 as well on that count. So I think it's an apt comparison because that's £160. Comes with a few features that this doesn't have. This comes with a few features that doesn't. It has a 10-year warranty. This has a 2-year warranty. They're not the most expensive chairs, but they are more premium in their build. But again, there is a £90 disparity or your regional equivalent there, so it's up to you. Jump cutting all over the place now. If you want to pick this chair up, you can use the Amazon affiliate links in the video description, but a bit of an odd one there. It's not very widely available. Okay, I'm going to backtrack there a second. It is actually now very widely available. You can get the black, blue, and white versions in America for about 400 US dollars, in Europe for about 300 euros, and in Britain for about 250 pounds. It's pretty widely available now. I've got the UK, US, German, French, Italian, and Espanol in Spain covered for the Amazon affiliate links for all those colors. I'd also like to say a big thank you to N.Seat actually, because not necessarily getting a free review sample, that's okay, but I suppose £250 is quite a big deal. But getting a review sample on time with the release of a product is a much bigger deal for the growth of a channel. Getting a review out on time with the release of a product is really important. So thanks for N.Seat in that regard. That means a lot, and I hope you enjoy the review. I'm going to stop the intro there. It's gone on long enough. We'll go straight into the unboxing in a second, but I hope you enjoy the review and come back for the conclusions at the end, where I go into a bit more in terms of the warranty and that sort of stuff between the two, because I think it's a really important thing to highlight. But most of my thoughts are contained in the review, so I hope you enjoy it, and I'll catch you in a second for the unboxing. For the unboxing and build segment, remember you can skip ahead with the timestamps in the video description. First of all, we need to get the box into a room where the chair is going to be used. Now, this may or may not sound obvious, but once this is built, it'll be an awkward unit to move between doors, like any full-size desk chair. It's also quite a heavy chair, weighing in at just over 27 kilograms, compared to, say, the top-of-the-line, arguably, Markus chair from IKEA, which I bought a few years back. I'll be using the Markus chair as a reference every now and then, since it's the only real contender I've owned to the Pro 700, other than the blue chair I got from the tip. It's a good chair. So, once you've wrestled the box through your messy, tight corridor, I assume that everyone has one, it's time to get unboxing. Now, the package that came through to me was a little roughly handled by these plastic straps. I'm not sure if the intention was for these to be used like handles, but that's how it went down. We'll run through the components in more detail throughout the review, but the parts out of the box consist of a backrest, a lumbar cushion, plastic 5-star base, more closed-cell foam packaging, a headrest cushion, the frame and lower seat control assembly, the accessories box that we'll break into in a second, and finally the seat with the pre-installed arms. So with all the parts out of the box, let's run through the accessories box and get onto the build. Starting with the side trim and the telescopic shroud, it's hard to avoid the layer of dirt or dust that's built up all over it, like it was packed in some sort of sawmill. It's not the end of the world, I'm just reporting on what I'm finding, but it's not what you expect for a £250 or 300 euro product, dollar equivalent up now. Anyway, a quick wipe down will fix it, so we can move on. As for the wheels or casters, these were wrapped so didn't encounter the sawmill packaging plant problem, but something that immediately stood out to me was these wheels, and I'm not sure if it comes across in the video, but the white plastic looks more like it's leaning to some sort of cream or yellowish colour. It still looks like white from afar, but when you focus in on them, it's a lot more noticeable. And finally there's the fixing set, which while the packaging is a little beat up, the hardware inside is completely fine. Onto the base and slowly towards the build. According to N.Seat, it's made of nylon, but something that's not mentioned in the specs is it's glass reinforced. Just gonna pause myself there to go into a little more detail. The quick way to see if something's glass reinforced is to get a knife out and shave away at the material and listen to the sound it makes. The sound, almost like cutting sandpaper, is the sound of all the tiny glass fibers being cut through, and I'll find any excuse to take a closer look. So doing the old reverse lens macro trick, I cut off a larger chunk of plastic and took a closer look. All of the light grey specks are the tiny glass fibers that have been cut through, and for scale I set my SD card by the sample. Anyway, I'll let myself finish off my sentence. Which is a kind of treatment a good tool plastic gets. These kinds of plastics are very strong and in my experience have great impact resistance, which is great considering I've dropped my drill off the workbench more than once and it's left the concrete deck without a mark on it. But something I think needs closer inspection by the manufacturer is the mold for the casting. It seems to be a little worn, or maybe something went wrong during the setting process, but the inside of the shaft sort of peeled or flaked away a bit. It's not like this is a practical problem since the piston will be gripped by the inset steel ring, but it's not exactly pleasing or confidence inspiring from the outset. So installing the wheels is the first step, and this is just a simple push the bolts through the holes affair, and they're held in place with snap rings, which is typical of most desk chair wheels I've seen. The next step is the height adjust piston. I'm sure N.Seat won't thank me too much for this, but they've seen my channel, they knew what they were getting into. So like if I have a fan in front of me with a serial number, it gets shown on camera. Same here with the piston, and I virtually have no idea what all of this means, but maybe some of you can understand it, and if you do, please enlighten me in the comments. This just gets dropped into the base as you'd expect, and the telescopic shroud just goes over the top. Next up is the frame/lower control assembly. The center of the assembly seems to be cast aluminium and the brackets to the sides are steel. All the control levers, the rock pressure adjuster, and the top cover are plastic, but this top plate here is steel. This assembly gets dropped onto the base of the chair as you'd expect, and a set of washers and a bolt holds it in place at each corner. The arms of the chair are pre-installed, but there are some bolts to the base of the chair that can be removed if you want to get rid of them entirely. And I've just noticed one of the bolts has a different head. The cover of the chair is held in place by metal rings that grasp onto a perimeter of steel rods that are welded to the frame of the seat. The base of the chair is actually just supported in the center by a few steel plates, and there's no plywood involved, just a thick foam base to support your butt. This surprised me since the only chairs I've gone for go for the plywood approach, which is cheaper, which doesn't really surprise me actually since I don't really own any premium chairs. But the foam on top of the plywood can become less comfortable over time when the foam starts to permanently compress. I don't see this being so much of an issue with a 10cm foam seat like on the Pro 700 compared to the 6 to 7cm thick seat of the Markus chair from IKEA, which includes the plywood at probably 9 or 12mm thick. Moving on, this whole unit can now be lifted and dropped onto the piston. N.Seat do recommend having 2 people to build this chair, which probably would help to avoid situations like this. The connection to the piston is actually offset to the back of the chair and more aligned with where your back would be or your spine would be, if you're not using the lumbar support cushion, that is. Now, something I found a little disconcerting were these hinge cover panels. They seem a little too flimsy. Don't worry about the hinge opposing the backrest hydraulic assembly freely moving, that's fine, but the cover panel just seems a little less solid than I'd like. Something else I'm not a fan of is the hinge connection on the backrest hydraulic assembly. It's not on view once the seat has been assembled, so it's not a practical problem, but it was just something I noticed and I'm pointing it out. But something I am a fan of and is definitely worth pointing out is Audible. Audible has the world's largest selection of audiobooks, audio dramas, and audio shows. If you've been interested in checking out how audiobooks work for you, you can get yourself a 30-day free trial with a free audiobook and support this channel at the same time by using the free trial affiliate link in the video description. If you want to follow up with a membership, you can get 50% off the first 3 months using the discounted membership affiliate link, also in the video description. Thanks to Audible for supporting the channel, and now we can move on to installing the backrest. Again, this is probably easier with 2 people, but it's really not that hard if you back the chair up against a wall or something tall. Like with the base, it's a couple of bolts and washers to each side and then we can move on. But before we move on, something that either developed during the build or was apparent on arrival, I'm going for the second one, was some loose stitching to the lower side of the backrest. I also noticed some loose stitching up and around the top of the headrest and down the opposing side. Joining the loose stitching is a fair amount of fraying, most notably but not isolated to the loose stitching. When it comes to exposed stitching like this, there needs to be a compromise on the softness for comfort, but also toughness for durability. I think this stitching here could do with a little more leaning closer to the toughness side of the scale for the sake of increased durability. Moving on to these side bracket cover panels that get fixed to the side brackets of the backrest, I've got mixed feelings about these. They're held in place really well with just one screw and a couple of guides, but the panels don't line up very well with the back of the backrest, and you can easily over-tighten this panel and cause it to take a concave shape. Again, not a big deal, so your mileage may vary here. Onto the lumbar support cushion, I actually really like this addition. The stitching is pretty solid, and it's basically just a memory foam type material clad in PVC leather. It's also nice and comfy, and the elastic strap and plastic buckle to the rear actually do a decent job of holding the cushion in place, even higher up the backrest. Speaking of which, the backrest foam padded layer is fixed to the top and bottom, but the sides are open so the lumbar support straps can be slotted through and coupled from behind, which makes complete sense from a clean design perspective. So here we have the fully built N.Seat Pro 700. So now we can move on to the user experience. Not quite. Now, to fully disclose my experience with this product, I encountered an issue where when I put some load on the backrest, it would slowly lean back, the rate of which would change on how I leant on the backrest, and the rate of sped up over time. When I pressed the backrest actuation button, the backrest wouldn't rise without encouragement, and when there was a little bit of encouragement without the activation button being pressed on the backrest would slowly rise. I think I got that all right. So when it comes to this kind of thing, I'm generally curious to pinpoint the problem out myself and see if I can do anything to fix it, tie a bolt here or there. So I dismantled the chair and removed the hydraulic assembly for the backrest. I also noticed what I think was the oil overflow port while I was doing this, which was interesting enough. Anyway, here's a quick breakdown and a run through of the issue. This could be useful to those of you with this kind of problem, and just so you know, this is a fault and it has been sorted by N.Seat, which we'll go over afterwards. If you want to skip this, please use the timestamps in the video description. You can see that I probably showed a little bit, or you may have seen in the footage, there's a little bit of wiggle going on. And this actually makes a little bit of a noise like, let me find it. That's it. It's like something's dangling in there. And it's annoying. So, let's see if we can just take these screws off. Now, I did try to take this panel off when it was attached, but there was no way I could get underneath it. There are screws here to see if you can remove it, but there's no way. There's actually screws in here, so we'll remove those first. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this voids any warranty because clearly you probably should not be in here. This is that metal switch then on the outside which actuates the hydraulic arm. And I don't particularly fancy pressing that right now, so I'll do my best to not. But anyway, there are some bolts around, but none of them seem particularly loose. To me, it looks like this piece here, let's see if I can show you, this piece here just isn't very tightly fastened. You might be able to see there. And I just don't think there's any way that I can possibly make that tighter. So when N.Seat asked me about my first impressions, I basically listed off everything that I've told you up to this point, missing a few things that weren't relevant at the time. I also sent them those clips of the problem, and as I stated before, this is a defect of the chair they sent me, and they've sent out a replacement hydraulic assembly, which is rock solid. So if you also get one which happens to have a loose arm on the hydraulic assembly, get in touch with them and they'll send you out a new one after going through whatever checks they need to carry out, I assume. So now we can move on to the user experience section of the review, considering we've finished the build. Starting with the 4D armrests, these cover a large range of motions as 4D armrests do. So we have height control, which has a total of 9 stops between 20.5 and 28 centimeters above the base of the seat. We also have 3 angles the armrest can rotate between, which will be more capable of serving those with different seating styles and those with broader or narrower shoulder widths than a static armrest could, like that on the IKEA Markus chair. And finally, the armrests can be translated forwards and backwards with a total of 4 stops, and left and right with a total of 3 stops. This gives you the freedom to mess around and find the perfect setup depending on how you feel at any given moment. Remember, there is no perfect seating position long term, so mixing it up every now and then isn't a bad idea, and this is just another way you can achieve this. But something all of this movement can cause is pinch points, and boy, I found a few on these guys. Rotating the armrests outwards and inwards will expose a pretty large pinch point on each side, and shifting the armrests left and right will expose some minor pinch points that are pretty tough to get caught by. But combining the rotating and left and right translations will accentuate the pinch points of the rotating elements alone, which I found were actually pretty easy to get caught by if you control the positions of the arms from the back when rotating. Apart from that, the armrest construction is not too bad, although there is a noticeable amount of wiggle to the unit overall. However, I do have an office chair in work with 4D armrests, and these are on about par with that, although I don't know the name of that desk chair, sorry. But frankly, it's not something I've noticed day to day after searching for it for the purposes of this review, so I'd say it's pretty good overall. Onto the backrest and rocking function. The backrest can be controlled with the actuation button on the side, which after getting over the initial "this is different" period, is actually really usable, and I prefer this over the base attached lever system of most chairs. But I did have some issues with the lumbar support, and in this case the headrest cushion when changing between the backrest positions. The headrest would either slide out of position, or the lumbar support would need readjusting to suit the new position. Not the end of the world, but again, just something I noticed. Something else that stood out to me, but much stronger this time, was the rocking function in comparison to the Markus chair from IKEA. Since the backrest is controlled separately of the base functions, when you rock, the angle of the backrest remains fixed compared to the angle of the seat. This means to lean back, you need to actively shift your weight backwards or push back with your feet on the floor, which sounds kind of obvious. But switching back to the Markus chair, since the backrest is mounted directly to the base, the angle of the backrest can be controlled in relation to the angle of the seat. It's a little tricky to see, but it's far easier to feel, so if you have an IKEA near you, it's worth trying out. You don't need to drastically change your seating position to get the Markus chair to lean back. You just need to apply a little pressure. This makes control of the amount of leaning more to do with the angle between your thighs and back instead of how far back you position the various parts of your body or how hard you push off the floor. Better for those of you like me who like leaning back a lot and are quite short. And a final note that's not really noteworthy, but for full clarity, both chairs have an adjustable lean pressure via a rotating knob. No, not that knob. So there we have it, that's pretty much the end of my review. You've got all my thoughts and opinions on certain things. I want to discuss quickly for a second the warranty and that sort of stuff on the two products. I did mention it in the intro. In terms of materials, I sort of failed to mention a lot of. I'll put some notes through. It really wasn't a highlight or something I wanted to focus on so much. It is PVC leather, so it's pretty appealing stuff. It's nice and soft, and it's durable, or as durable, maybe not so durable actually compared to leather. If you snag a nail across it, it will probably cause some issues, but you can scratch it without any problem. But again, if you've got a rough nail, very much like leather, like I know the leather on the steering wheel of my Toyota will snag if I hit a nail across it at a certain force, which is a bit of a pain. In terms of the armrest, it's very much a mild firmness of plastic, as it were. At least it feels like that. It's got a bit of give, so when you rest your elbow on the edge of it, it's kind of okay. It's more sort of wipe cleanable, as it were. So something like you smear chocolate on it, you can just wipe it off. So yeah, it's fine. Again, with the whole situation of using it day to day, I don't really notice it. I sort of lean my elbow on it and it's fine, has some give. Anyway, one thing I wanted to go back to was comparing this to the Markus in terms of price, warranty, all that sort of stuff. Now, in terms of comfort, I do find this chair more comfortable. I mean, it's not surprising considering this has a 10cm cushion, which is kind of like a molding foam sort of stuff, same as the backrest and the headrest and the lumbar support. It's all this molding foam sort of stuff, so it's very comfortable. But it doesn't have that reclining feature that I love on the Markus, and I'd love to have that on this chair, so it's not like I can really choose between the two on those two things. More comfortable in terms of seating generally, but that's got that lean back, and I lean back quite a lot, so I like that. Anyway, armrest wise, this has got a lot more features on it, and it does go a little lower than the Markus, and obviously raises much higher, so you can avoid desk clashes here and there, which is great. And apart from that, those are pretty much the major things I think are the difference between the two, apart from the price, of course. That, in the UK at least, your regional equivalent will apply. I'll put some other figures up now. That is £160. This is about £250. That's got a 10-year warranty. This is a 2-year warranty. So you kind of have to weigh things up on that stance. What I would recommend is if you live near an IKEA, and quite a few people do, that is sold globally. It's a worldwide product, so you can go and try that out. And if you think, I kind of prefer this to be a bit more comfortable, then maybe you want to go for a chair like this, either this one or something similar perhaps, or you want to go with, I don't know, something a little different, or maybe even just that chair in itself. Maybe you don't really care about the 4D armrests, but you prefer the reclining feature when you find out. It's actually really quite luxurious, or pleasure. It's a nice feeling. Go try it out. Yeah, it's quite comfortable. It doesn't take a lot of effort, and you don't need to lean your body that far back to get it to work. It's more of a case of just a bit of pressure from your shoulders or your lower back. Anyway, that's me sort of rambling on now, so I really hope you enjoyed the review. I hope you got all you can out of it for a desk chair review. It's not something I'm going to do a lot of. Of course, if a company decides, hey, do you want this chair? And I think it's, I don't know, something that is different, or I can put a different spin on, or I can make a more in-depth review than there is out there, then I may consider it. But I don't know, do one chair review, is it going to be that much different from another one? Who knows if the feature set is that much different. So yeah, chair reviews isn't something I do very often. I hope this, I don't know, to me this was more of a case of, and if you're not really here for the review, you can leave now. This is more between me and my subscribers. So this isn't really something that I sort of want to do. It's not like a chair thing, like, oh, I'm going to start reviewing chairs now, as much as I review CPU coolers, cases, that sort of thing. But it's just, I wanted to try at least something different. And if someone offers you something on the table and say, hey, here's a free shot at trying something different, then I think I'd be a fool to not accept that kind of thing. And of course, I get a free chair out of it. That is nice. But of course, I had no idea what the chair was going to be like. And definitely unboxing it initially, I didn't have high hopes for this thing, especially when I came across the problems with the backrest thing. I was thinking, oh crap, it's just going to be a slaughter when I review this thing and start writing the script and stuff. But it turned out better towards the end. But yeah, I just wanted to give it a shot and just see, can I apply myself to something different, is basically what I'm trying to say. And I think this has shown that I have some flexibility for this channel, and I can apply myself in more ways than just some coolers and some cases. So I hope that came across in the video. So anyway, a huge thank you to all the people who've been supporting me this far. We're actually, I think, nearly 3,500 subscribers, which has gone up quite quickly from the 3,000 mark. If you want to check out more videos from this channel in the future, then please subscribe. If you want to check out some previous videos, I'll have some popping up probably over there. And if you want to go further than that, you've seen quite a few videos of mine and think, I want to support this guy in making the videos he makes and see where we get to, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. I will be supporting that more from in the next month onwards, for the rest of however I do this for, who knows, because I'm actually going to be bringing in an editing, or making an editing PC, and going from there and being able to be a bit more efficient than just having my test system being in pieces all over the place. Anyway, cheers guys, I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for checking this out, and the previous thing I said. Bye bye.